Welcome to this information session on Omaha's age-friendly ADU design competition entitled An ADU for You. My name is Richard Duncan. I direct the Universal Design Institute in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm joined today by Hannah Peel, who is our design lead there. And if anything goes wrong with anything on this presentation, we're going to blame Hannah. I just want to let you all know that from the very beginning. I want to shape your expectations right from the very first slide. This was advertised as a deeper dive into age-friendly design. It's not quite true. It's more like a deeper dive. It's not a deep dive into age-friendly design. It's really a deeper dive. To have a deep dive, it would take a lot longer than we have done, maybe a semester-long class. So it is certainly deeper than the session we had last week. I'll talk more about that in a minute, but that's how we think about this. It's a somewhat deeper dive into all things age-friendly for accessory dwellings, focused on this year's design competition. So we're here because of the inspiration and funding by AARP Nebraska and their state director, Todd Stubendeck. And I want to acknowledge the enthusiastic and thoughtful assistance in planning and collaboration with the city planning department in the city of Omaha, in particular, Derek Miller, who's a key staff person there. So yeah, we'll be talking about accessory dwellings as one tool among many for aging in place. We know that there's a dearth of housing appropriate for older adults, and we think that accessory dwellings in Omaha as and elsewhere can play a significant role for a certain segment of the population of folks. Some of you may have attended our session last week, where we gave an introduction to the competition. We talked about the timeline and logistics and the city's fast track program, which is what the eligibility for winners in this program will be eligible for inclusion in. And we talked about ADUs for older adults, and introing that by outlining what some of the problems are that older adults have with the housing that they live in now. And unfortunately, the vast majority of older adults live in homes that aren't appropriate for their successful aging in place. That's what this opportunity is all about, to create new dwellings that are designed more appropriately and scaled appropriately as well. So we'll talk about universal accessory dwelling design. And what we mentioned also was the fact that this, and we love acronyms, this is a not just an ADU, but a DADU, a detached accessory dwelling. We know that they come in a variety of flavors. Accessory dwellings do from renovated solutions and additions and so on. This is really about detached accessory dwellings. So then and now, one of the things that's exciting to me about is that we're talking about creating new dwellings, which are so badly needed everywhere, including in Omaha. And as I said, we have the opportunity in creating these new dwellings to apply a new, improved, more appropriate design standard to them, which will make them work better, certainly for all older adults, but for a whole wide range of folks, as I think you'll see as we go through these slides. So that was last week. This week, and then it was recorded last week. And the recording is on this website, ADU for Omaha, that's housed on our Better Living Design platform. Better Living Design is the sister institute to the Universal Design Institute. That institute focuses just on universal design applied to housing, and that's where we've decided to house the landing pages. The landing page for this competition. It has everything you need to know about it, questions answered, links to other places, and so on. And if you do have questions, I'll show this slide at the end as well. Hannah Peel at hannahp@udinstitute.org is where you go to for that. So recording for last week's is there in case you want to go back and see that we're not covering exactly the same material. There may be some interesting things there that you can find. It'll work out. Let me see if I can get this advanced. Okay. So today, we're still going to talk about accessory dwellings for older adults, and certainly as I say, a deeper dive into accessory dwelling design in particular, the competition requirements. I'm saying here competition requirements plus. We'll do a little bit more because we know that we don't have time to talk about the whole depth and breadth of all issues related to age-friendly design. And in fact, we've boiled down the things we're looking for you to be paying attention to far fewer items than you'd find in a long checklist for attending to everything. You can decide to go beyond the minimums for the competition yourself, and this may give you some clues as to where you might head for that. But we will go back over later on. We'll bring Hannah back and go over the logistics and timeline again, just so you're reminded about how that squares up. We'll mention resources of which there are in abundance, I'm happy to report, and we'll leave some time at the end for questions. So we have about 90 minutes. We won't go beyond 1:30 Central Time with this. And let's start with what we think we're situated and where what our goals are. So there are four goals. You could have different numbers, but certainly improving housing options for older adults. We're always interested in that, as well as providing affordable and healthier alternatives. We know that accessory dwellings are a more affordable housing alternative compared to a lot of other housing alternatives that are out there. We hope to increase the supply of accessory dwellings suitable for aging in place as a result of this over time and going forward. And we think that all of that will allow seniors to remain in their communities as they age. All appropriate goals. You may have additions that you can add for yourself. The medium-term objective is to generate several sets of age-friendly plans that are eligible to become part of Omaha's Fast Track program. We told you last week that the top 3 winners plus honorable mentions will be eligible to then work with the city to get their plans situated in their Fast Track program and then advertised to the public. And that's really where we want to get to by the end of this competition period. So the goal is aging in place, and I'd like to say it's really about successful aging in place. We're all aging in place, and unfortunately for so many of us, we're aging less successfully than we could be because the homes we're aging in weren't designed for ourselves. And so we live smaller, more dangerous lives over the years unnecessarily as a result. So for successful aging in place, we like to think of it as the ability of one's to live in one's own home and community safely, independently, and comfortably, regardless of age, income, or ability level. We think that accessory dwellings can, for some folks, be a part of that and help them to be successful in achieving those particular goals. And we know that there's a lot of ways to age successfully. We're talking about housing today. We know that there's a lot of personal lifestyle kinds of issues, which can also contribute to being healthier. This guy is kind of my role model. He looks like he's doing a lot to remain healthy, but he, like I, eventually will need his house to be more responsive than probably the house that he's living in now. And that's what we're about. We know that everyone is going to eventually need some additional accommodations, and we think that designing it from scratch is really the way to go. So applied to accessory dwellings and really a lot of other kinds of homes, but for this competition, the size limitations is about 350 to 750 square feet. That's the ceiling that the city of Omaha currently has. That may change in the future, but for this competition, that's what we're looking at. We know that the submissions will include a step-free entrance, wider doors than might be normally found in homes. We'll talk more about all these in more detail. A usable bathroom, a kitchen with universal design features and appliances, a laundry. Now, laundries can be optional in some accessory dwellings. We're asking for you to show this in this competition, and we're not requiring it, but and that's why I have the asterisk there. You'll see that later on. We really think that if you're not including some outdoor living space adjacent to these very small dwellings, that it's probably a mistake, because people need some elbow room. They need to be able to get outside in nicer weather and spend some time in locations that they can reach easily. And I'll mention here also briefly that this is specifically not a competition for tiny homes. We find that those two terms, accessory dwellings and tiny homes, are often conflated. unhelpfully so. Tiny homes are a different animal, much smaller. And I've never seen a tiny home that could serve very well as a place that someone could successfully age in place in. So just to make that distinction now, these are larger and full dwellings that have the potential for being fully usable by an older adult. So I've referred earlier, I'll mention it here, we'll refer to it again, that accessory dwellings and universally designed accessory dwellings that are also age-friendly will work well for older adults. That's really our focus, right? But over the lifespan of the dwelling, and they could be scores of years, right? Even longer potentially. There could be many different residents, and we think that homes designed in the ways we're talking about can be useful to all of them without being a problem for any of them. So it could be an older adult now. At some point, it could be a caregiver. It might at some point be a renter helping to support the older adult, maybe in the primary residence. It might be the adult children of someone or other family members. And so a whole variety of folks might be living in these dwellings over time. We know that if we're designing them universally to begin with, that it can accommodate any of them with minor adaptations. So we've got two primary documents to refer people to. They're both accessible via the landing page that we mentioned. Here's our basic criteria. We have all the criteria listed out very clearly here on several pages. We'll go through this later on in this presentation. And it's really the areas that we want you to focus on more than others in this competition, although you can certainly check other boxes, and we'll talk about those later. The other document we refer people to is a guidance document. It has additional information on certain areas that we're touching on in the criteria. Not necessarily required, but certainly some more depth of information about some of these areas. And these two, along with all the other resource materials we have, should give people a good grounding in how they might approach design and product selection. So one thing to mention at this point also is that we encourage alternate design ideas. I think we mentioned this specifically. So we're pretty particular about the lists that we have and what we've included and what we haven't included, but we're always interested in alternate approaches. And so don't think that because you're trying to do something a different way that necessarily won't comply. We're available, in fact, to answer questions now and between now and the time that the design competition closes in October, to discuss ideas with any of you. And we welcome that opportunity. So please think creatively, and I'm sure you come up with some interesting ideas. So the two major splits we have in the criteria are things related to around the house and things related inside the house. And so in the around the house category, there's just a few bullet points. There's a 1 in 20 max slope on pathways. We want the pathways to be at least 42 inches wide. And if you've included some outdoor living area, whether it's gardens or other living spaces, we request that you consider the slopes and the surfaces in that creation, in that creative creation of outdoor living spaces. We're specifically talking about 1 in 12 max slope because we don't want to get into the ramp slope arena, which is between 1 in 12 and 1 in 20. We really want to emphasize non-ramp solutions, although you could have hardscape solutions of various kinds, but graded solutions are probably what we have in mind more than others. And bringing us to entrances, we need, of course, a zero-step entrance with a roof covering over it. I'll explain why in a second. With a landing that's a level landing, effectively, at 2%, no more than that, just enough to shed water. And this is not a heavy lift, a 36-inch wide entry door. These are not uncommon, so this isn't unusual. So this is not an accessory dwelling, but is a home that we helped in the design of long ago that has enough of the elements along the exterior for me to highlight it here. So I'll go through it with you and kind of step through. So first of all, it's got this pathway that begins at the driveway on the right, gentle slope up, takes a corner around the shrubs you see there, and lands you at the front porch, which is level with the first floor. There's no step in from porch to first floor at all. It's level with the first floor. That's a key element of a seamless route of travel into a house. It also has a roof covering. You noticed that in the criteria a minute ago. We're suggesting a modest size, but you could certainly go bigger. What this does is two things. Having a roof covering over the step-free entrance is, because it's level with the first floor, the roof covering helps prevent and reduce the likelihood of blown water or snow or ice accumulating at the doorway itself. And there's increased likelihood of some water infiltration because you don't have that step down. So this helps prevent some of that. But also in terms of users, older adults take longer coming and going from the house, and this offers weather protection for them, whether it's the heat of the summer, rain or snow, as I mentioned, or other inclement weather. We also have stairs here. We don't hate stairs. We just want there to be at least one route of travel into the house that doesn't require using them. Stairs are great shortcuts for a lot of people. What we like is what you don't see here. We'd like to have handrails on stairs if you've created a stair for some folks to use on both sides of the stair, so that folks can have the benefit of that if they choose to use the stairs. But we're not requiring stairs in the competition. So the pathway, it needs to be firm, stable, and even. So that means no gravel, no loose cobbles, no flagstones that wiggle and wobble. And there's a lot of ways you can create a firm, stable, and even pathway, not just plain old concrete, but all kinds of other materials as well that we invite you to explore. So outdoor living space, I have my asterisk. So we've got that on the porch. You could create something yourselves in another way, in another location. So this is an example of actually a retrofit. You can see on the left-hand side of this picture, a retaining wall that was done. This particular house, again, not an ADU, had steps going up, and by bringing in earth fill and creating a wide pathway and a roof over the porch, which wasn't there before, it created a nice graded entry. Now, we're not requiring that people use a site that we've selected for you. You could pick any site you want. You may choose to have a site that has some grade change to it. That's fine too. This is another non-ADU example, just a graded entry to a porch that's at the same level as the first floor and is covered. Now, at the doorway itself, I mentioned we need to have a level platform. The level platform needs to be at least this big. We don't always refer specifically to the needs of people who use wheelchairs, because there's a whole bunch of needs of folks who don't use wheelchairs who benefit as well from these things. But in this case, we're showing a person in a wheelchair sitting on this level platform. Again, why we want the overhang, the roof overhang, is because of the platform's level. We don't want to have water blowing into the doorway. So at least that dimension of being level, and lack side clearance on the pull side of the door. We can explain that in detail later if you need to, but it provides an opportunity for someone who's standing there to open the door without having to back up themselves. So they can open the door, they can stand next to the door. If they have a walker, that walker can go next to the door. If they have packages, that can also go next to the door. If you have a large enough overhang over the doorway, someone could even have a package chair or a package bench. They could put things down while they get their keys out and then work on entering the door. So this kind of configuration at the doorway is important to keep in mind. And some kinds of garages and some kinds of ADUs are conversions. This particular one is a garage conversion, as you can see, which has a lot of built-in advantages, because in terms of, slopes and so on, and step-free entrances, you already got that built in. There's a small overhang, probably not as big as I would prefer, that may not do quite the job that we're looking for, and not really a protected outdoor area, but that's not essential. But I'm glad they have something going on there. Okay. So we're not also requiring drawings of this kind of detail. We're not calling for cross sections at door entries and so on, but I'm showing this to you to give you a more detailed idea of what we're after. This is pulled from a publication we did that was dealing with renovations, but it shows this level deck at the doorway well. So I decided to show it here. It really shows the decking coming right up to that sill, right up to that threshold. without a step up or even an inch or an inch and a half up. It's got to be an even transition and a low profile threshold as well. So again, we're not asking you for this kind of detail, but when you're designing these kinds of things, this is what you need to be keeping in mind, and why we're so careful about water accumulation, infiltration around the doorway. I've got this vividly colored green here because this is not what we're looking for. We know that in so many residences, the transition to make it more livable is going to be through renovation, and ramps are probably unavoidable in a lot of cases. Lord knows I have designed and paid for hundreds and hundreds of ramps, so I know what the situation is. And we're looking to avoid those. We're looking to avoid having homes be ramp ready or dwellings being ramp ready. We want to have them be fully usable from the get-go. So we're not fond of ramps as a look. We're not fond of ramps as they're usually rendered. In this case, it's actually a pretty decent ramp as ramps go. The slope is very gentle. They've done some nice grading at the foot of the ramp, so you don't have abrupt drop off. And it looks like it's built in a sturdy way. There's no handrails. We need handrails on ramps. They don't have that here. And there's no roof covering over the entrance as there would need to be in any step-free entrance. This is more what so many ramps wind up looking like before too long, which is another reason why we don't like ramps. They're unpainted. They're in many cases uncared for. And they always seem to be built at one slope. Your prior photograph notwithstanding, very often they are a 1 in 12 slope, which is the steepest legal slope. You can build that for commercial buildings, and people just have selected that as the standard design for no particularly good reason. So graded entries, 1 in 20 slope is what we're after. So that's a brief tour of the stuff outside the home. Not a long list, fairly easy to, I think, understand and comply with, but you can ask questions via the chat now or anytime during the conversation, and we'll try to log them and record them. We'll get to those questions at the end. And please don't hesitate. So inside the house, a big category, lots inside the house. So in terms of interiors, we're not requiring a 3-foot path of travel. In fact, in these very, very small dwellings, and again, this is not an ADU we're showing here, it'll be tough to not wind up with a 3-foot wide path of travel because you don't have very much in there. We're mentioning minimums of 42-inch wide hallways, also not likely to be found in many of these dwellings. I'll be interested to see what you come up with, but we have it in there anyway, just as a reminder. We do have, I didn't adjust this slide correctly. Okay, so what it should say is 32-inch door opening, not 32-inch clear opening. So I made that adjustment, but I didn't complete that. That means you can have a 32-inch wide door is what it means, which is a standard. A 2.8 door is fine. So many folks seem compelled to bring, again, commercial building door standards into dwellings, regardless of scale or door swing or anything else. And we find that it's just not needed in many cases, and just the scale is inappropriate and just takes up too much room. So I'm sorry for the confusion over my my mismanagement of this slide, but it's a 32-inch door. It's a 2.8 door is what we're asking for. Cased openings, 36-inch wide, however. Again, you may not have many occasions for cased openings without doors in these tiny dwellings. Pocket doors, we are looking for a 32-inch wide clear opening. Pocket doors, barn doors, anything like that, we are looking for a 32-inch wide clear opening. We just found that 36-inch wide doors that are hinged take up so much space. While they're more useful, we find the 32-inch wide doors are so much wider than so many doors people typically find inside a lot of homes now, that offer a lot more utility and usability in a standard door size. I have in one of the bathrooms in my house now, not the one I'm adapting, there's a 24-inch wide door. So that's, the difference is remarkable. Okay, so that's doors and door openings. 2.8 door, 36-inch wide door coming in from the outside, and 32-inch wide clear opening for sliding or pocket doors. So windows, we're saying 42-inch maximum hardware height for window controls, which may be difficult to attain with most double hung or single hung windows, which we acknowledge. And we know that all of those windows can be real problems for lots of people, including older adults, to manipulate because the lock is so high, because you have to use two hands almost always to move the sash up and down. And we're really hoping for some creative thinking about how you might achieve that. So in easily operable windows, obviously casement types, awning types come to mind, where they have the controls located at the sill level, at the stool level. And also windows that have the locks within that 48-inch maximum hardware height. So there may be some creative solutions to this, but it probably steers us away from the standard single or double hung window opportunity. All right, so continuing inside, continuing looking at kind of maneuvering room, same kind of issue inside as outside in terms of relationship to the doors. Clear space, obviously. And again, there's not many doors within these dwellings, right? Bathroom may be the only door in many cases. But the same kind of lat side clearance, the same kind of clear space to maintain. Some jumping around a little bit. So we've already talked about that. We talked about 42-inch wide minimum hallways. And again, there may not be much that you've got in there to worry about. And if you look at this, this shows you one plan we came up with that actually uses pocket doors to eliminate the door swing, both in bathrooms as well as going in and out of this one bedroom in a 524 square foot unit. So within bathrooms, one advisory is to provide adequate maneuvering room. And so we've got some detail on that in terms of space in front of the toilet, space away from the sidewall. People will recognize that particular 18-inch item as borrowed from the commercial code. We're retaining it here because it seems appropriate. And then we really like curbless showers, but we're acknowledging that for some older adults, tubs are the way to go. And a minimum of 60 by 36, though, for that dimension. So we're looking at, this small dwelling, and they've got a curbless, thresholdless shower in the corner. That's fine. They've also included occasions where they have grab bars installed, and I have X's, or I'm trying to be X's through those to indicate that we don't want grab bars to be part of this competition. We want blocking, and I'll talk about that in a second. Not that we're asking you to show that, but blocking is essential. These grab bars, as well as so many grab bars that people can randomly assign in toilet areas, is often the same locations you'd find them in the McDonald's restaurant. One on the side wall, one on the rear wall behind or over the tank. And it's just not appropriate for having those locations for people inside their dwellings. If people need a grab bar, they need to be very specially located just for them. It's one of these differences between, design for commercial areas and design for residences. And so while blocking is a great idea, again, we're not requiring you to show that, and broadly applied blocking, as I'll explain in a second, we're not requiring grab bars. We know that when someone occupies it, then they can designate where they want the grab bar to be in concert with others, maybe with other professionals, including occupational therapists. This bathroom also shows an outswinging door, which we like in a lot of bathroom situations where you've got small bathrooms where you're competing for space. The outswinging door can make a huge difference, just like that pocket door, in eliminating the swing into the bathroom and providing more accommodating space. They could have made this bathroom smaller, in fact, because of that, but they chose not to. So I mentioned blocking. Again, the asterisk, we're not requiring it, but if you were to do blocking in a bathroom area around the bathing fixture and around the toilet, broadly applied blocking. In the olden days, we used to say just, turn a sheet of plywood on its side, 4 feet high, and stick it on top of a tub, stick it in a shower area and around the toilet. So you can put the bar wherever you want the bar to be, not constrained at all by the location of the studs. Something else we're not requiring in the competition is any particular specification for toilet. And I'm mentioning this now because it tends to come up over and over again. This is actually a brand, as you may know, of one of the major national bathroom fixture manufacturers that has become ubiquitous. It's kind of like Frigidaire and Kleenex. These higher than normal toilet heights, which people have incorrectly assumed are now the new standard for everybody and the new universal design standard, and what all older adults must necessarily need and have. And in fact, they work great for some people. If you're tall, they work great. If you're short, they don't work great at all. My mom could have never accommodated a toilet of that height, and would have been dangerous for her to get on and off of it. In larger dwellings where you've got two bathrooms, our recommendation is usually put a higher toilet in one bathroom, put a lower toilet in the other, standard toilet, and people can make the choice about where they choose to use it. I mean, standard height is 15 to 16 inches to the seat, and this is maybe 18 or 19 inches in the case of these comfort height toilets. The idea behind its utility is, especially for older adults, is that you have less far to sit down and less far to stand up. It's one of the realities of growing older, that sometimes our strength in sitting and standing up becomes reduced. And so this eliminates part of that. So it's not a bad idea, but for some folks, it just isn't. And I wouldn't assume that everyone would need this. And if you are doing some design work, as I hope you will, with a particular client down the line, you can ask them the question. Now you're armed with the question about what their comfortable height is. And they may not know. They may have to go do some trial and error. We're used to the things that we're used to, and we may not know about the options that may be present elsewhere. We like curbless showers a lot. We think that everyone will eventually be using a curbless shower, willingly or otherwise. Some of us don't like it. My mom didn't like showering at all. She used a tub as long as she was able to. There's a lot of options, including in setup units with no curb at all and very, very low thresholds. So we're happy that that's out there and available. 3 feet by 5 feet is our minimum. Tiled offers, in some cases, a more jazzy solution and even a more seamless transition from the shower area to non-shower area. And really, depending upon how you work your waterproofing, it could be a wet area bathroom for that matter. So you wouldn't have to have so much of a distinction. So we know we're not requiring grab bars, and we're not even requiring other specific kinds of assistive devices, but we're mentioning this to you because we think it's a great idea. I'm calling them handholds, and all the major bath accessory manufacturers make them. We like them a lot because they offer stability and security, placing your hand in items that you may already be having in the bathroom. And so it's built into a soap dish. It's built into a towel bar or a paper towel holder or around a mix valve and things like that in relatively attractive ways in a variety of finishes and so on. That mean that for everybody, I think everyone's bathroom should have these. Some of mine do. You can, when you need a little bit of assistance with balance, or maybe hoisting yourself off the toilet before you need a grab bar, you've got these things around that are still securely mounted and won't come out of the wall, but they're generic. And so you're not going to pull the towel bar down with you, as so often happens to so many people, or yank some other accessory in the bathroom down, in the tub down, or shower because you slipped and you're falling. These are secure points of purchase that you can use. So we like them a lot, but not required for this. So in terms of controls, offset controls are a great idea, and also controls that are unobstructed, both of which are present in a lot of bathrooms. So this is the standard bath. This is, we have one of our bathrooms is like this. You find yourself wedged between the toilet and the tub. Maybe you're older and your balance isn't what it was before, so you're reaching into the tub to adjust the water. Maybe it's one control, maybe it's two, and it's an awkward position at best. One that invites some kind of a strain or back strain, or maybe invites falling, which is a real problem. So locating that mix valve offset out towards the outside edge of the bathing fixture is a good idea. This also happens not to have a tub or toilet right next to it, which makes it much easier for everybody to get to. You're not having to wedge yourself around there. So jumping to laundry, we're asking for laundry, even though we know in some circumstances that may not be what's possible in a very small dwelling. So clear floor space, washer dryer units, that having controls on the front and front loading as well. So it's front controls and front loading is a great idea. Let's see what we've got here. So we've got, again, my mom showing how the controls in the front bring them right where people are. You can see them better, you can manipulate them better. Having front loading means that ergonomically, it's a lot easier for folks. You can see she was just 5 feet tall, and having this up 6 or 8 inches would have been a great benefit even for her at that height. So the flexibility of adjustable height really makes a big difference. They have them up high enough, you can have storage below, low enough, you can have a work surface above. So lots of options there. Not all units that you may design may be able to accommodate a side-by-side, full-sized unit. And in some cases, you may need to flip to something like full-size units, but stacked one on top of the other, still with low controls. The top is obviously going to be more difficult to get in and out of. It may not be the permanent long-term solution for folks, but it may be for a while. They can manage this, and we have to go on to other options, which we'll talk about in a second. So in this case, this particular unit, they had the space for side-by-side washer dryer. Terrific. We're kind of, I have an asterisk on this page. We're reluctant to push this too much, but I know in our practice, we're recommending that people consider things like this. They're less expensive, they have a small footprint, and while they may not last long-term in space in places where you have money constraints or space constraints, this may be a good interim solution for some folks. Not ideal, but okay. And eventually they might be able to graduate to this if maybe it becomes unworkable at some point. A single unit where clothes go in dirty and come out clean might be fine. And for a single person particularly, it might be a solution that works well. I'm feeling I need to step up the pace here. So in kitchens, again, we don't think it's that likely you're going to have a galley kitchen that you're going to need to worry about 42 inches between cabinet faces. We're mentioning it here anyway. There may be circumstances that provide some awkwardness. So we have in this kitchen, you've got, the furniture located so that the table and chairs are right in the kitchen. We all know that that table can't be there, in the chairs at least, for the kitchen to be used effectively, right? It's just going to be too much in the way. And so it really brings the question up, in these small kitchens, should you be extending the flooring out further? Because you know that table is going to be pushed out in that direction anyway, somehow defining additional space for movable items like that to be used. Unlikely that you're going to have a fixed island, although you could presumably do that. We like to have that space, that 42 inches still adhered to. You see there's another one here where there is more space, and you could maybe think about having a fixed in place island, whether it's in that configuration or not, I'm not sure. But again, having that space on the other side so people can access the appliances, and to have there's occasions where there's 2 cooks, it offers them more space there. And I'm also pointing out here that they have this single washer dryer. It's probably an over under in this case, and it looks like it's full size. Again, you could have one of these smaller size units potentially. So kitchens are complicated places. There's a lot going on. So drawer-based cabinets and cabinets with loop or touch latches. Again, that's not particular, is not particularly kind of cutting edge, but drawer bases are a good idea, and a lot of us like it. So this is one version where we experimented and to kind of see where the design would take us. So in this case, small dwelling, accessory dwelling, small size dishwasher that fits under the counter that isn't so deep. And again, for one person, you may not need a full-size dishwasher, and reaching down won't be such an issue with a dishwasher like that. We have our drawer bases over here, which work much better for reaching into. We included a lowered work surface. You wouldn't have to, I think, when you cases where you have an adjacent regular kitchen table. because that could be a lowered work surface for folks. You wouldn't have to have special cabinetry. And we didn't include any wall cabinets. I think last week I maybe talked about the dangers of us climbing up high. I mean, my mom was on top of counters at age 90. And so we experimented with what might it look like without wall cabinets. You could certainly add them in here, but we wanted to emphasize storage in other ways. We created this alcove on this side, which might have been a washer dryer combo, could be a place where a microwave is placed, and again, instead of over the range, and could be a place where you have things like pantry storage. We love pantry storage because it offers all these accessibility features. It comes out to you, easy visual access, easy physical access at a variety of heights. Works for us. There's a lot of different price points as well, from more costly to less costly. And of course, not just front controls on washer dryer, front controls on stoves. Can bring it to people so they can see it more easily. We like it better if those front controls are angled, so it doesn't force us to kind of turn sideways and see to be able to see what we're doing with those controls. We know that induction stovetops seem to be the safest option available these days in terms of cool surfaces, so we like that. And there's another option too with stoves that we've heard of, that having two ovens in a particular either floor standing or sliding range, I guess, other than having something in a wall oven category, where the top oven is smaller for most day-to-day cooking that someone might be doing, and again, not so much bending down with that top oven. So we talked about front or side controls. Height limitations also. If you have a wall oven, no more than 48 inches high for the uppermost control, and locating microwaves in easy to locate areas. So in this case, it's a different kitchen. We did also put a lowered work surface there. It could even be hinged for that matter. I don't have an arrow for this, but right next to that is the under counter mounted microwave, which is a popular location for them now. Front controls on the stove, a million different refrigerator configurations. Side by side used to be the gold standard. Now it's been supplanted by the drawer style in the base. All work well from a kind of access perspective. And we also have, again, the small size under counter dishwasher. Shows another location, an alternate location for a microwave. Could be installed as an array of wall ovens, or as we say, under the counter as well. So again, not much rocket science here. Continuous countertop between stove and sink, making that transition easier for folks. That's very common in most kitchens these days anyway. And then this one lowered work surface that you can do in a variety of ways. So moving on to the living room area. So it really is doing your space planning with furniture in place in these very small dwellings to make sure it's going to work out. So it's making sure that with an appropriate anticipated amount of furniture that these small spaces will be usable. So clear space around coffee tables, even though we know obviously furniture is going to be moved, but can it account for some of these expected uses? And so in this case, this is the smallest of, I think, the accessory dwellings that we're showing here, that is really a studio. And we're just asking that people can place furniture so they're you don't have to leave the house, to get to a chair. In fact, you've got space enough for an appropriate number of pieces of furniture and appropriate scaled pieces of furniture. Obviously, you're not going to have 9-piece living room set in a unit like this. So moving into the bedroom, also space allowances, also, pretty much reliant on the kind of furniture that people choose to have, but thinking about storage there as well, not just in kitchens. And we stole these images from a company that I tried to find recently. They used to be manufacture these clever little devices where you could take your bifold doors, as you see here, and you could fold them flat against the wall. And I thought it was called Easy Fold, and I put out a national call for this. And I don't think I ever came up with an appropriate solution. I guess they didn't have enough business, but we have one of these in our house in a hallway, and I was looking to see if we could get something that could replace the track and let it flat against the wall, which is great if you have a piece of equipment or you use a wheelchair for getting around. But what this shows actually is the space beside the bed, adequate space beside the bed, minimum space beside the bed for someone to maneuver. Very tough if you're jamming a lot of bedrooms in these small dwellings, but still a thing to be thinking about with an appropriate sized bed, and what that might look like in the room size that you're talking about. With these small dwellings, I've begun to revisit over the past couple of years, in some cases, technology from ages ago, Murphy beds, and whether or not they might be an appropriate solution for, flex space, if you will, for folks. And I don't have the bottom line answer, but it'd be great if people could explore that. Is there a Murphy bed that's easily operable by an older adult? I know there's a lot of high tech ways with moving walls in, for instance, with storage attached to them and so on, all kinds of interesting things that flip and fold. And those might be appropriate if you want to tackle the really smaller sized units and provide some other kinds of interesting options. So I invite you to consider that. Indoor environmental quality, which is, air quality and lighting. We're aware of the increased attention and knowledge about the air quality inside the places we work and the places we live. We also know that older adults have an increased vulnerability in the respiratory area. So paying attention to that, we think, makes sense. We haven't taken this into the actual HVAC systems, but you can imagine where you might need to go with that. But at least we'd like you to think about the low VOC products in all areas that you might exercise that as a way of improving the indoor air quality. And things like layered lighting. Again, in a small house, not that many options for layered lighting, but maybe in the kitchen, maybe in a living area, so you don't rely just on cans in the ceiling, but other wall sconces, for example, or pendants might be another way to get some layered lighting going. So you have different lighting intensities and different kind of task lighting in a sense. So switches and controls, you're not surprised to hear probably that we'd like them in particular locations at particular heights and not others, to be as easy to reach for as many people as possible, and that they'd be easy to operate. And technology is adding a whole new element to this, because you can operate so much from just using your phone. And that could be an option. Maybe not all older adults might have the right technology or the money to spend on that, but it certainly is someplace that we're going to. So this is a kind of a complicated drawing for this particular presentation, but you can see on the left, you've got, the outlet height, 18 to 24 inches to the bottom of that. And you've got 48 inches, 42 to 40 inches to the top of thermostats and light switches and so on. And electrical panels as well, having a max height to that so people can actually use them, and having in locations that make sense. So having them where you can actually get at them is really important. So having clear floor space in front of it, making sure that folks can reach it. And again, not that many options for where you can locate this in a small dwelling, but keeping it in a prominent location where they can be reached is important. Okay, let me see here if we can get some movement. Okay, so 18 to 24 inches for most of those outlets, outlets over counters and tables within reachable ranges. We're talking about mainly in kitchens and perhaps in bathrooms. And you can, there's a lot of printed material about how, what those ranges need to be, just not too high. And added electrical outlets near beds and or desks, if that's a possibility, and certainly near the toilet. We're becoming so much more reliant on things electrical in our world. And if people are expected to be aging in place, and even aging in place with health problems, being able to be maintained at home means almost inevitably acquiring electrical devices to help us do that, whether it's CPAPs at night, whether it's other air purifying devices of various kinds. Having those available having those outlets available with frequency will make a difference. And in toilets, one of the things with outlets in your toilets these days are the potential provision of bidets. Bidets are becoming more and more common. We know that for older adults and a lot of other folks, they offer hygiene for folks who might not be able to take care of their hygiene as they once used to. So having an outlet in the toilet area makes that difference. And it's kind of built in from scratch. So here's again a reminder about the control heights and the outlet heights and the kind of switches. I don't even know if this is modern technology anymore. It seems like it's or current technology. It certainly isn't cutting edge. So many people have these for a lot of reasons. You can operate them more easily with a hand or grasping that can't grasp those switches. You can hit it with your elbow or with your closed fist. So that works out well for that. So if you have switches, rocker switches or toggle switches are what we're looking for there. So last category, I think, is whole house is maintenance. And so if you're thinking about an older adult moving into a place, one of the problems very likely with the place they came from is their inability to properly maintain it. We maintain things for many years. We maintain our residences as long as we can. But one of the challenges as we grow older is not being able to, and in some cases, not wanting to, like in my case, the house in the same way you could. So having low maintenance materials makes a difference. It's a whole big category of what those might be, whether it's cementitious concrete type products, a lot of composite materials, some of which are more controversial than others, but things that don't require the same kind of maintenance as maybe the wood-based products that we used in years past would be a good idea. So that's the list of kind of going through what we're asking you to be thinking about from an age-friendly perspective. We think that the outcome will be high function that really enhances the livability of the homes. And for an individual or an individual household, it can mean a real affordability issue long-term, because you can delay a move to these expensive care settings for months, years, or even decades, because you're living in a house that better accommodates you. I mean, these care settings can be $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, and being able to delay that can be a huge boon. Plus, people want to be at home anyway. So keeping people at home and avoiding that's a great thing. Because of the design of them, fewer injuries, fewer stairs, fewer bathrooms you have to work your way through and around in cramped settings, few falls in kitchens, fewer falls in bathrooms. It's not just for individuals, but also people who are their caregivers, which too often is another older adult, right? Older adults taking care of other older adults can be a real problem. So we'll have fewer of those. And I think as a result, improved mental health, not just improved physical health, but improved mental health, because we're in the homes where we want to be. We're able to maintain and continue our activities of meaning and purpose for as long as possible. And we have the choice about the interdependence that we'd like. It's not really this binary choice of dependence or independence, because none of us have ever really had that over our lives. It's always this interplay between I'm helping you, you're helping me. I get to choose, though, as an older adult, do I want to have you help me, get to the store? Terrific. They want to have you help me get off the toilet? Probably not such a great idea from my perspective. So more choices and more control for themselves over time is what we think these homes will give them, as well as another affordability issue, which is low cost customizations. We know that homes have to be customized, but we know that the cost of these things and the complications of those will be so much less in these kinds of dwellings compared to traditional housing. It may be as adding a grab bar to in the bathroom or some bath accessories that are easily installed, and maybe not much else in the house besides that. Kitchens would be the big exception. It's tough, we've found, after trying for years, to design kitchens that are easily and cheaply modifiable, from designed for a standing person to designed for use by a seated person. That may require a little bit more extensive modification, but other than that, not much. We think that it's a higher cost customization in kitchens, but a low incidence of that being happening in older adult households. And also, if it matters, we think that because these homes are designed usefully with, that look good and work well, that they're highly marketable when that time comes. So I mentioned that a variety of folks could be ones living in these accessory dwellings over time. And you could think about, in terms of affordability, all the retail and frontline workers in your community, where are they going to live at some point? Maybe these accessory dwellings might be lived in by some of those folks instead of having to move way out. The movers will love you if you have a dwelling like this. And yeah, if you're an older adult, you may have a piece of equipment that indicates a mobility problem. Maybe it's a cane, maybe it's a walker. I think we've shown how these are really going to be a benefit to you outside this dwelling or inside the dwelling as well. And yeah, it might be someone who does use a wheelchair. Maybe it's an adult who has a spinal cord injury who uses a wheelchair. And as we say, these are much more easy to modify should that occasion arise in the lifetime of this dwelling. So great for older adults, but great for a whole lot of other people as well. So it really is a whole age span user group that can benefit from these over the lifespan of the dwelling. So that is the end of the kind of information I wanted to provide. We're going to bring Hannah in now to talk about the scoring criteria, how that plays out, and a lot of the logistics associated with that. So I'm going to flip this slide over, and I will mute myself, Hannah, and you can take that away, okay?
Okay, sounds good. It's good to see so many people here today. First, I want to address something that has come up a few times in the chat. We're not looking for a typical drawing set. We're looking for specific things, and we're not looking for other things. So, yeah, so it's just different. When we go through and score these, we're going to be looking for things that you might not even get to normally, until your final, much later in the design process, when fixtures and finishes and appliances and that kind of thing. So we're just asking you to imagine and let us know that you know what would be good things for you to recommend to your clients when that time comes. And things like switches and outlets, those kinds of things, we don't need you to show where every single one is, but if you can give us a sample, again, just indicating that you understand where the most useful placement is, then that's what we're looking for. So scoring criteria, yeah, we're going to use the criteria. We know that not everything, you won't be able to show everything on the drawings, which is part of the reason that we're asking for a narrative, so that you can include things that would just be too cumbersome, really, to include them in the drawing set, in that narrative, like why you chose such and such stackable laundry system, whatever, or why you chose an induction stove, those kinds of things that we need a little bit of a description from you, or a little expounding on. So I'm not sure what that slide is in reference to. part of this competition is making it affordable for seniors to stay, at least if not in their home, in their community. So thinking about both the short and long-term costs, the cost of construction, ease of construction, things that can make it easier and less expensive to build, no fancy engineering needed. Those things, and thinking about energy efficiency. You can even think about, how do you make this completely, I don't know, net zero or ready? Anything that is going to make it less expensive for the homeowner to operate down the line, and will end up requiring less maintenance to maintain. That's what we're going for, is that makes for a less expensive house. So we are interested in seeing modular panelized prefab. We're also, I'll just throw in there that if you already have an ADU that you've built and you want to submit, then that's great. We would still require you to create the drawing, the specific drawing showing different things. But that would be a great way to start. The context. Yeah, we're looking for a variety, because there's a variety in Omaha, and we know that depending on where you are, you're going to have different requirements. But for this competition, think about what fits with various neighborhoods and areas of Omaha. We're not looking, so this is today, you can start whenever you want to start, but we're going to open the submittal window on September 15. Then that means that it'll show up on that landing page, and it'll be available until October 13th. If you submit an application by 5 days, I think is reasonable, then we'll have a chance to see if it's complete. I'm just saying that after that, I can't guarantee that we're going to be able to note an incomplete set and let you know. So the earlier you get it in, the more likely you are to be able to be notified if there are any additional things that we need from you. The specific submittal document requirements are in the competition guide that's online. It's a PDF. If you package the PDF, if you want to submit images or fly-throughs, you should be able to do that. There should be enough space. It's a 500 megabyte max. So you would submit the complete package with your identifying information on the cover page, and then choose a project name and put that on every other document without any identifying information, because we will judge them anonymously. There will be another question that came up was about how we're going to treat entries that come from minority and women MWBEs, and we're going to just add points automatically to those on the top after we score. the whole entry, the whole package, we're gonna add some points on top. So that's the answer to that. There will be a little checkbox for you to check. Then we'll go through the entries and we'll distribute them to the jurors, and the jurors will deliberate and will meet a couple, 2 or 3 times to look at them and narrow down. And then we're hoping to notify that a week before the event. And then there's going to be a very nice event honoring the people who win, hosted by AARP on the 28th. And the next slide. Right. So specifically, next. Yeah, we're not calling for a max, but we can make it at least 11 by 17. Great, thank you. Those are the requirements listed in the competition guide. Next. Why? This is a big question. So the city of Omaha is just starting this fast track program and has a gallery, or has started a gallery of pre-approved plans of different kinds, and ADUs is going to be one of those, the kinds of plans that they're going to highlight on that page. And they'll have, so if your design is chosen, then they'll have several images, your contact information, and a link to your webpage or contact or whatever it is that you want to provide, so that the public, whoever wants to buy it, can get in contact with you directly. You set the price. You set the price for modifications. I'll just throw in there that the plans as pre-approved will not allow for very many modifications. If you want to submit different variations on a plan, then you can do that up to 3. Just submit those. If you have one design with 3 variations, submit that as a package PDF. That would allow you to offer different options to your clients without having to slow down the process, because they would have to start at the, not get fast tracked. So correct, that's a good question. These are for, I just saw a question about whether we're asking for attached or detached, and we're asking for new build detached ADUs, freestanding. So that's a great benefit. We'll also have a showcase of these ADUs on our website. People may not end up buying the ADU, but they may want a whole house or a garage or a pool house or something. You may get business, some other kind of business, from the traffic, from people seeing your design on the gallery, the Omaha gallery or our gallery. Yeah, we're also giving a cash prize, $5,000 total. First prize gets $3,000, second $1,500, and third $500. And all of the honorable mentions will go on to the next phase, where their designs, you'll develop the design, and then it'll be reviewed by the city for pre-approval. And the city will work with you you know, they want to get these designs approved, so they want to work with you to make sure that your design works for that. So next slide. This was kind of covered in the last session, but there are questions that come up often. So anyone who can submit for a single family in Omaha can submit for this program. Next. Yep, you get to set the cost. Can people submit plans for ADUs? Yes. So again, we're basically looking for you to clearly communicate that you understand what it means to design for aging in place. And you can do that in a variety of ways. So we're asking for exterior elevations, interior elevations that are larger so that you can note dimensions on those. We're asking for dimensioned floor plans so that we can see how wide your hallways are, how wide your doorways are, what kinds of doors you selected, what kinds of, you can point out what kinds of fixtures you selected on there, or in the elevations or in the narrative. So we can see that there is maneuvering space around tables and furniture, beds. I mean, obviously you're not selecting the furniture for these necessarily, but we do want to make sure that were you to, it would be possible to easily maneuver around some furniture. So, and next. So there's a question, you've not mentioned HVAC systems. Typically the size of these units of mini split system is enough. Yeah, we have not mentioned any kind of HVAC systems. We're not asking for wall sections. We would like you to think about those things because those things are important in, you know, making the ADU function well and last a long time, but we're not requiring you to tell us exactly how you're doing that. Yeah, if your design is chosen, I guess it's, you know, we didn't want to lay too much on you, and we really want you to focus on the kind of essential elements of age-friendly design. So if your design is chosen, then you'll need to include those details and everything that you would include in your drawing set. So, but you don't need to develop the design to that level for our competition. There's a question, design drawings don't usually include outlet location or specifications on materials. Do you want to see that in the competition submittals? I think I talked about that some. So we don't need to know where every single outlet or light switch is, but if you can indicate on one of your elevations where some would be, then we'll know that you understand. That you'll understand that that's where the most usable location is.
So
We've
Yeah.
moved on to questions.
we have, and you've covered all of them.
No, I haven't.
Oh, what's left?
The competition requires new construction with designs assuming major renovation be considered. These may be more material efficient and better use of existing sites. This is a great question because we're not asking for a specific site, and I don't know. Richard, I think you would be the best one.
I do have an idea about this. So we're looking specifically at detached ADUs. So if you're doing a garage renovation, with a first floor, that seems okay to me. There may be different hoops you have to jump through with the city for that, but yeah, I think that's fine. We to get back to a prior question, we're not looking for basement renovations. We're not looking for additions. We are looking for these detached accessory dwellings. There was another question earlier about heated square feet, and I think the answer, if I'm remembering the question correctly, I'm going to scroll back up here. Oh, if heated square feet is net, then yes, it's net. That is good one to note down. So we have, once again, the website, that's the landing page for the whole competition, and has information here. If you refer to, this is not the end of any questions. We're available going forward till the flag drops at the very end in October for this. So don't consider this to be your last and only chance to be talking to us about this. And certainly if you come up with interesting ideas. And I don't know what else you wanted to talk about. We'll just quickly run through these resources. Our website has a ton of stuff at that URL, also reachable via the landing page. We have infographics and a whole variety of things related to age-friendly design. ARP has a ton of stuff also reached through the landing page. Design ideas, all kinds of development guides, policy statements with respect to ordinances, if you're interested in that, and on and on and on. So we probably have too many things available, but all those things are there for you. So I guess what is all but our final question, covered outdoor spaces are not included. That's right. Exactly so. So if wait a minute longer for additional questions, but this is us in Asheville, North Carolina. And that's my phone number and my email. We're on a variety of platforms, but not as many as we used to. Let me see if we've become less social media oriented than we have in years past. See if I can do that. I want to gain control of my machine back here. All right. And if that's all the questions, then we'll thank you for your attention, because we're close to the end of our time. While we don't have to jump out or any sooner, you have our emails. Please feel free to contact us for any follow-up questions. We'll be happy to answer them. And Hannah is developing kind of a comprehensive FAQ list that will also be posted where? On the competition website, that hopefully gathers these questions and others in one location where you can see kind of where we're headed with some of this. Anything else, Hannah?
think that's it. If you have any questions, let me know.
Okay, thanks so much, everybody. We look forward to seeing your designs. Bye.